If you sue your sister, never return home again. My father shouted angrily when he found out I would sue my sister. Why did I decide to take legal action against her? Because she had the nerve to steal my bank card. Follow my story and tell me, was it right or wrong to take legal action against my family? My name is Candace. I'm 26 years old and currently work as a chef at a 3-star restaurant in New York. The job isn't as glamorous as people might think, but I love it. I love how every dish is brought to life by my own hands, clean, honest, and without deception. For over a year now, I've been living alone, no contact with my family, no calls to check in, birthday texts, or even a nod on the street if we happen to cross paths. And to be honest, I'm okay. No, actually, I'm happy. I'm in an environment where my hard work is respected for the first time. No one takes credit for what I've earned and says, "Your sister needs it more." No one calls me selfish for standing up for what's mine. A year ago, I was kicked out of the house I had lived in for 25 years, the place I grew up in, which I once thought was safe, all because I had the guts to sue my sister Mila, who turned my trust into a cruel joke. That morning, I thought I was having a good day. I sat in the kitchen sipping a freshly brewed coffee. The warm aroma blended with the soft morning light, and for a brief moment, everything felt peaceful. No ringing phones, no deadlines, no kitchen heat. Just a few quiet minutes to myself before starting the day. Then my phone buzzed. A message from the bank. Your account has been credited with $200 from Mike L. I chuckled and shook my head. Right on time. Mike is a coworker at the restaurant. He'd borrowed $200 last week and promised to pay me back on Monday. And sure enough, there it was. Monday morning, money in. I was about to set the phone down when my eyes caught the remaining balance. $211. I froze. I rubbed my eyes and looked again. Still, $211. I quickly logged out and signed back in, this time slower, more carefully. Same result, $211. My whole body went cold. Just 3 days ago, I checked that account after transferring $200 to Mike. I still had precisely $125,100. Gone. No warning, no alert, just $200 and change left. I called the bank immediately. After a few minutes of verification, the agent on the other end said, "We recommend you come into your nearest branch so we can review your recent transactions in person." I didn't ask any more questions. I stood up, grabbed my jacket and car keys, my heart pounding out of my chest. I had no idea what just happened, but I had a feeling this wasn't just some system glitch. This was a betrayal, and I was going to find out exactly who was behind it. I made it to the nearest bank branch in under 15 minutes. On the drive over, my mind raced with several theories. Was I hacked? A system glitch? Or did someone get a hold of my login info? I didn't talk to anyone while waiting. I just sat there, hands clenched, palms soaked in sweat. When it was my turn, I explained everything to a bank rep named Rachel. She looked to be in her 30s and spoke with a calm, professional tone. After verifying my ID, Rachel pulled up my account and reviewed the transaction history. The screen before her lit up, and I noticed her eyebrows subtly knit together. "I found the transaction that caused the major drop in your balance," she said, turning the screen toward me. "A transfer of $125,000 processed at 9:05 p.m., 2 days ago. The recipient account is Mila Thompson." I froze. I didn't need another word. I knew that name all too well. Mila, my sister. I leaned back in the chair like I'd just been slapped in the face. She took everything. Without asking, no warning. I wasn't even a consideration in her decision. "I didn't send her that money," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "And I've never shared my account information with anyone. This has to be an unauthorized transaction." Rachel nodded, her fingers still flying across the keyboard. "In that case, you must work with our internal fraud investigation team. But I have to be upfront. Since the transfer was done using valid login credentials, it will take time to verify whether there was identity theft or unauthorized access." I nodded, but honestly, my mind was spinning. Even though I was still sitting inside the bank, my heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might burst out of my chest. But I forced myself to stay calm. "I'll come back early this afternoon," I told Rachel. "First, I need to talk to my sister face to face." Rachel nodded without asking any further questions. I left the bank, walked briskly to my car, started the engine, and sped off like someone who had just been betrayed by their own flesh and blood. On the way home, my mind was a whirlwind. Questions kept flooding in, looping over and over. When did she take my money? How? When did I slip up? And then it hit me. 2 days ago, that night. I was about to take a shower when Mila called out from the living room. Candace, can I borrow your phone for a second? Just need to Google an address. My phone's dead. I tossed my phone onto the couch without a second thought. I mean, she's my sister. I even remember hearing her chuckle as I walked into the bathroom, but I figured she was laughing at something online. Everything felt so typical. Nothing seemed off. But now I know. She didn't just use my phone to look something up. She opened my banking app, logged in, and transferred every last dollar, $125,000, into her account. God, I was so naive. Not just for handing her my phone when my guard was down, but because before that, there had already been at least 3 times I had let her into my bank account. I was working on a new menu and testing recipes and was too busy to hold my phone, so I'd asked Mila to help transfer some money to our parents. A few hundred here and there. I read the passcode each time, and she did it for me. I told myself, this is family, this is my sister, but really I had handed her the keys to destroy me, and I didn't even see it coming. When I pulled into the garage, I practically jumped out of the car and stormed into the house like a hurricane. Where are you? Get out here now! I yelled so loud my voice cracked with rage. My fists were clenched, my heart pounding, my head about to explode. No response. I charged straight toward her room and pounded on the wooden door. Mila, open the door! Get out here! My fists hitting the door echoed down the hallway, loud enough to startle my parents, who came rushing in from the kitchen. But I didn't care. I only wanted to look her in the face and hear an explanation. A few seconds later, the door swung open. Mila stood in pajamas, half asleep, her hair a mess, wearing that lazy, annoyed look like I had just interrupted her beauty sleep. What's going on? She mumbled, clearly irritated. I practically roared. Give me my money, $125,000. The bank confirmed it. The transfer happened at 9:05 p.m. 2 days ago. Recipient name, Mila Thompson. You took it. She shrugged like I was overreacting. Oh, that, she said, letting out a yawn. It's just a short-term borrow. There's this amazing business deal. Double the return in 2 weeks. Trust me. Right after those words left her mouth, I fired back. You took it without asking me. You went into my account. You know you weren't allowed to do that. That's not borrowing. That's stealing. My voice shook with fury. My face was burning. I was barely holding it together. Give me my money back now, or I swear, I'll take you to court. Right after I threatened legal action, a voice shouted from behind me. Candace, that's enough. It was my mom. Her voice rose sharp and accusing, like I was the one in the wrong here. You're blowing this way out of proportion. She's your sister, your family. Why can't you handle this privately at home? Why talk about lawsuits? My dad stepped in, his face just as tense, frustration evident in his tone. You're willing to embarrass this whole family over money? You know how Mila is. She just borrowed it. She never meant any harm. I turned to look at them, 2 people who were supposed to stand up for what's right, and felt a tightness in my chest. My voice was shaky as I asked, She didn't mean harm? You're saying that after she emptied my account without asking, without saying a single word to me? With my parents now backing her up, Mila's entire demeanor shifted. She crossed her arms, leaned against the doorway, and smirked like I was just a kid throwing a tantrum. Oh, come on, Candace. Are you seriously making a scene over this? Before I could say anything, my parents spoke again, this time even more firmly. Family is supposed to help each other, Candace, my mom said. This whole thing was a tiny misunderstanding. Over dinner, my dad added. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. Is that so? Then why don't you give her the $125,000? Simple enough. There was a brief, heavy silence. Then my dad snapped, Watch your tone. We don't have that kind of money, but you do. You're her sister. You're supposed to help her. I stood there frozen. Those words, so familiar throughout my childhood, it was always, Your sister needs it more. She has it harder. She should come first. And now, nothing had changed. Same mindset, same rules. I was still the one who had to give, just because I had. Then why didn't she ask me? I said, trying to keep my anger in check. Why did she sneak behind my back and take every dollar I worked 4 years to save? The sweat, the exhaustion, the skipped meals. Does all of that mean so little that a half-assed excuse is enough to make it right? My mom's voice softened then, like she was trying to de-escalate. All right, fine. She said she'd pay it back. Don't blow this up even more. Making a fuss won't help anyone. I turned to Mila, my voice dry. I'll ask one more time. How long? She looked away, clearly caught off guard, then muttered something vague. Just a few more days. I nodded, but not because I believed her. Because I had decided. 3 days, I said, firm and final. If you don't return the money in 3 days, I'm suing you. The room went ice cold. And then came the familiar roar from behind me. If you sue your sister, don't ever come back home again, my father shouted, face red with rage. It was a verdict, not a warning. There was no room for compromise. There was no family left, just sides to pick. I looked at him one last time. All right, I said, my voice calm and cold. I'll be out of the house this afternoon, and I'll get a lawyer. As for those 3 days, I take them back. You won't need them. No one said a word. I turned and walked to the door, taking only my phone and wallet. Everything else in that house, the clothes, the photos, the memories, didn't matter anymore. The car rolled out of the garage and down the street, away from the house I had called home for 25 years. I decided to drive back to the bank. I wasn't angry anymore, not like I was when I left the house. I just felt empty. On the way there, old memories started creeping in, quiet, unwelcome. The kind I'd spent years trying to forget. I remember when I was 8. I skipped breakfast and saved every penny I could to buy my first remote control car. I hadn't opened it for 10 minutes before Mila snatched it from my hands and said casually, "Let me play first. You're the younger one. You're supposed to share." I ran to tell Mom, sure that this time she'd stick up for me. But no, she patted my head and said, "Come on, she's borrowing it for a bit." When I turned 13, my aunt from another state mailed me a navy blue sports watch for my birthday, precisely the style I loved. Before I even had the chance to wear it, I found the glass cracked. Mila had taken it to show off to her friends and dropped it. When I showed the broken watch to Mom, she just shook her head. "It's no big deal, honey. Your sister didn't mean to." By the time I was 17, I had spent the entire summer working in a kitchen to buy my first set of professional knives. One day I came home and they were gone. Mila had lent them to her boyfriend because he's learning to cook and she didn't think you'd need them right away. I was furious. But all I got in return was Dad saying, "Why are you acting like a child? It's just knives. We've got plenty in the kitchen." I lived in that house for 25 years and not once did anyone ever stand up for me. It was always, "Your sister needs it more. She didn't mean to. She didn't do it on purpose." But what about me? I was never allowed to make mistakes, never allowed to need. And now, after 4 years of scraping and saving every overtime shift, every missed meal, every night I came home too tired to stand, every single dollar was gone. And the person who took it, still here. And my parents, just like always, chose the wrong side. 10 minutes later, I was back at the bank. Rachel, the staff member from earlier, recognized me the moment I walked in. With just one look, she understood exactly why I'd come back. I sat down at her desk and said plainly, "I want to file a formal dispute. That transaction was made without my consent. I did not authorize my sister to withdraw that money." Rachel nodded. "All right, Miss Candace, I'll walk you through the process step by step." She pulled out a folder with the necessary forms and opened her computer to pull up the transaction history. She explained that the bank would need 3 to 5 business days to begin the investigation. They'd look into any signs of fraud, track the device used, trace the IP address, and verify login timestamps. The case would be escalated to the legal department if unauthorized access was confirmed. "I want this handled through the proper legal process," I said. "I don't want to settle this privately. This was theft, and the person who did it needs to be held accountable." Rachel nodded again, silent now. She handed me a pen and pointed to where I needed to sign the forms. I took the pen. My hand wasn't shaking anymore. 5 days later, I got a call from the bank. They informed me that the preliminary investigation had been completed. The result? The $125,000 transfer to Mila Thompson's account was made from my mobile device at precisely the time I had stated, 9:05 p.m., 2 days before I discovered the missing funds. They also confirmed that the transaction was done through the mobile banking app with no two-factor authentication required, since the account was already logged in on the device. No OTP needed. Everything matched the story I gave. Mila had used my phone while I was in the shower. System logs recorded the IP address, GPS location, and even the previous login session, all traced back to my home address. Every data point lined up. I asked, "So what's the next step?" The person I spoke with this time, a more senior representative from the dispute department, explained that the case would now be handed over to the bank's internal legal team. They also advised me to contact my attorney if I wanted to pursue criminal or civil charges. I thanked them, ended the call, and placed the phone on the table. Not a single call from Mila during those 5 days. No apology, no explanation, nothing. She was sitting back, waiting to see if I'd proceed. That very afternoon, I scheduled a meeting with Attorney Harris, a referral from a close friend. I brought everything with me: transaction statements, the bank's investigation summary, and my written account of the incident. We met in a small office on the 10th floor. He looked to be in his early 40s, calm, composed, with a steady gaze that studied every reaction on my face as we spoke. Harris flipped through each document I handed him: transaction records, the bank's confirmation, and my incident report. He nodded silently, only pausing when he reached the recipient name. He looked up and met my eyes. "Mila is your sister?" he asked. Not surprised, just confirming a detail. I nodded, eyes still fixed on the paper. He raised an eyebrow slightly, then set the stack on the table. "And you want to sue her?" I looked straight at him with no hesitation. "I want her to be held accountable. No deals, no private settlements." He didn't respond right away. He just paused for a few seconds, then opened his laptop. The quiet sound of typing filled the room as he calmly began drafting the paperwork. He explained each step: a civil complaint, a demand for restitution, and the legal grounds under financial account misuse statutes. In less than an hour, the file was complete. "I'll submit the complaint to the court early next week," Harris said, scanning every line of the document one last time before saving it. "In the meantime, Mila will receive an official notice. If she fails to respond or tries to deny responsibility, I'll request the bank's full access logs and move forward with the next phase, which may include criminal proceedings if necessary." I took the pen and signed every page he handed me. The ink pressed deep into the paper, as if sealing the end of an era, an entire childhood of being overlooked, pushed aside, always told, "Your sister needs it more." I didn't know how Mila would react. Maybe she'd explode, call me a traitor, a disgrace. Maybe she'd play the victim again, pull our parents into it, spin the same tired story about family. But this time I didn't care. I walked out of that law office just as dusk was falling. A soft summer breeze swept through the street. Streetlights flickered on. People hurried past like nothing had happened. 2 days after I signed the papers, the first call came from my father. It was 6 a.m. I was prepping ingredients for the morning shift when my phone buzzed nonstop on the kitchen counter. I wiped my hands, saw his name on the screen, and sighed deeply. I hesitated for a few seconds, then picked up. "You filed a lawsuit against your sister?" His voice wasn't as angry as I expected. No shouting, just tired, laced with disbelief. I gave a short, direct answer. "Yes, I did." There was a pause on the other end. "You know this will tear this family apart, right?" His voice dropped heavy, like he was trying to guilt me into backing down. I gripped the phone a little tighter, took a slow breath, and replied, "This isn't me tearing the family apart. Mila took all my savings without asking. You are the one who kicked me out. Now I'm just standing up for myself." He didn't say another word. He just hung up. Later that afternoon, Mila called. I hadn't planned on answering, but I did. A part of me wanted to hear what excuse she'd come up with this time. "You did it," she snapped. That was the first thing out of her mouth. No greeting, no calm act this time, just accusation. "You stole my money. I gave you a chance. You didn't pay me back," I said, my voice firm, steady. She screamed, "You ungrateful witch, after everything I've done for you." I cut her off. "You helped me? You call taking $125,000, 4 years of my hard work, helping?" There was silence for a few seconds. Then her tone shifted, softer, fake concern, pretending to plead. "All right, I'm sorry, okay? Just drop the case. I'll figure something out. I'm going through a rough time. I didn't mean to." I paused for a moment, then answered with a calmness that felt ice cold. "You meant to. You did it deliberately. No asking, no message, no permission. Please don't say it wasn't intentional. And no, I'm not dropping the case. I'll see you in court." I ended the call before she could say another word. A week later, the court notice was delivered to the house. I wasn't there to see it, but I could picture it clearly. The red stamped envelope, my mom's face stiffening when she saw it. My mother has always feared one thing above all: what people will say. She's terrified of gossip, neighbors whispering behind our backs, of anything getting out. And now her daughter was doing exactly that. That evening, I got a text from her. No scolding, no yelling. She always used that familiar soft tone whenever she wanted me to back down. "Candace, please don't take your sister to court. I know you're angry. I know Mila was wrong. But still, she's your sister. We can't let our family end up in court over money. What will the neighbors think? I'm begging you." I stared at the message for a long time, not because I was uncertain, but because I was trying to understand. In her eyes, how was my $125,000 less important than saving face with the neighbors? I called her. She answered almost immediately. Her voice trembled, as if holding back tears. "Please, daughter, don't escalate this anymore. Your sister knows she messed up. She will pay you back. She's just stuck right now." I cut in, my voice calm, almost eerily so. "I can drop the lawsuit." Silence. It felt like the air paused on the other end of the line. I continued, "If you can repay me the $125,000 on her behalf this week, that's all it takes. You cover the debt, and I'll withdraw everything immediately." She didn't respond right away. After a long pause, she let out a quiet, defeated sigh. "You know I don't have that kind of money." I gave a faint, bitter smile. "Then don't ask me to do something you wouldn't do yourself." I ended the call. I didn't wait for her to say another word. The first hearing took place on a cloudy Monday morning. I arrived at the courthouse early, wearing a white shirt and a dark blazer, carrying the folder of documents Attorney Harris had prepared. When I entered the courtroom, Mila was already there. She wore a long gray dress, lipstick too red, and a cold stare like she'd never done anything wrong. Seated beside her was a young attorney I didn't recognize. Behind them, in the public seating area, were my parents. My father gave me a look that could cut glass, like I'd betrayed the family. My mother avoided my eyes entirely. Her face was paler than usual, hands clutched tightly around her purse. No one greeted me, no nods. There was no recognition that we'd ever been a family. Harris arrived just a few moments later. He placed a firm hand on my shoulder and nodded. "Stay calm. We've got everything we need. Your only job is to tell the truth." When the judge entered, everyone rose to their feet. My heart thumped in my chest, not out of fear, but because I knew this was it. The moment I'd take back what should have never been taken from me. Harris went first. His statement was clean, direct, and factual. He outlined how the $125,000 transfer was executed from my device without consent. No messages, no authorization, no verbal or written agreement. Mila had no legal access, and there was zero evidence to support her claim that it was a loan. Then it was Mila's turn. She stood, adjusted her dress, and began in that same half-sincere tone she always used. "My sister Candace. She knew I needed help. I'd helped her with transfers before. I thought she trusted me. I didn't expect her to take it this far." I let out a soft laugh, not loud, but just enough for Harris to glance at me, signaling me to keep calm. Mila kept rambling, saying I had given her the passcode before, that it was all just a misunderstanding, that if we just talked, it wouldn't have come to this. Then the judge asked, "Do you have any written confirmation, messages, emails, anything that shows your sister gave you permission to transfer $125,000? She froze. The silence that followed lasted over 30 seconds, long enough for everyone in the room to know exactly what that meant. "No," she finally said, barely above a whisper. "There's nothing." When I walked out of that courtroom, no one looked at me. My parents walked ahead without saying a word to Mila. Mila didn't look at them either. No one looked at anyone, just silence. And maybe, for the first time, a glimpse of consequence. After the first hearing, Attorney Harris told me the court would take about 2 weeks to issue a preliminary decision. If necessary, a full trial date would be set afterward. But just by looking at Mila's face as she left the courtroom, she already sensed what was coming. I stepped out of the courthouse and took a deep breath. Not because I felt relieved, but because I knew I had just stepped onto the ground my family had always feared, the place where consequences lived. That afternoon, my father called again. I almost didn't answer, but I did. His voice wasn't angry this time, but it was dry, sharp, heavy with pressure. "You want to humiliate this family like that? Do you even have the right to call yourself my daughter anymore?" I didn't answer right away. I just closed my eyes, breathed steadily, then said calmly, "I didn't do anything wrong. And if standing up for myself makes you ashamed of me, then maybe I don't need to carry this last name anymore." There was a beat of silence. I could hear him exhale sharply through the phone. Then came the click as he hung up. That night, another message came in, this time from a cousin. Just one line. "You've lost it. Suing your sister? Who's ever going to trust you again?" I didn't respond. No need. I understood now. In that family, trust only ever went one way. They trusted that I would stay quiet, that I would swallow it, that I would sacrifice again and again like it was my job. But I've changed. And apparently that was more upsetting to them than losing money. Because this wasn't just a lawsuit, it was the end of a lifetime of sacrifices treated like obligations, and the beginning of a life where I don't need permission to live on my terms. 2 weeks later, I received the official note from the court. The lawsuit had been accepted, and the trial was scheduled for early next month. Harris called me right after. His voice was steady, confident. "You did well. We're almost guaranteed to win this." I didn't smile. Not because I wasn't relieved, but because I knew this victory wasn't something to gloat about. It felt like I had finally climbed out of a pit someone else had dug for me. On the day of the trial, I walked into the courtroom calmly and collected. Mila sat across the room. Her face was pale. No red lipstick, no showy dress from that first hearing. She looked nothing like the woman before, more like someone who had just awakened from a dream of false power. Her lawyer barely said a few words. No new evidence, no convincing argument, no witnesses. Meanwhile, Harris was razor-sharp as ever, citing legal codes, presenting transaction records, login logs, timestamps, every detail proving the transfer was intentional, unauthorized, and deliberate theft. When the judge ruled that Mila was responsible for repaying the full $125,000 plus legal fees, I didn't look at her. I didn't need to. I knew that look already. The look of someone who never owns their mistakes and only blames others for daring to ask for fairness. After the trial, I walked straight out of the courthouse without pausing. My parents weren't there. I didn't expect them to be. In their world, I stopped being family when I stopped being silent. A week later, the money hit my account. The exact amount, not a cent more. No apology, no message. I stared at the bank notification on my phone. What I felt wasn't triumph, it was peace. I didn't need them to admit they were wrong. I just needed them to know I'm no longer the little sister they can manipulate. And if anyone ever asks me whether I regret taking a family member to court, the answer is simple: no. Because this wasn't about the money. I took my sister to court because I finally learned justice doesn't show up on its own, especially not in a family where blood is used as a shield for people who never take responsibility. It's been a year since the trial ended. I'm still living in New York, still working as a chef at the same 3-star restaurant. But one thing has changed completely. I no longer fear the silence of my family. I haven't spoken to Mila since that day. No calls, no run-ins. My mom hasn't messaged me again. And my dad? He blocked my number after our last conversation. At first, I thought the distance would leave me feeling empty. But the truth is, life without them has been lighter than ever. I poured everything I had into my work. The head chef put me in charge of a new menu section 1 month after the trial. 6 months later, my name went up on the kitchen's achievement board next to some of the restaurant's most seasoned chefs. I never told anyone in my family. I rented a small studio in Brooklyn. Nothing fancy, not expensive, but it's mine. A place where no one walks in without knocking, where no one touches my wallet or scrolls through my phone while I'm in the shower. Sometimes I think about the past, not to hold grudges, but to remind myself. You can forgive people, but that doesn't mean you have to go back. I don't hate Mila, I don't hate my parents, but I haven't forgotten. I used to believe family was a fixed thing, something you had to return to no matter what. Now I understand. A family without respect is a cage, built to keep obedient people from ever walking out. Well, I walked out, and I'm not going back. So if anyone still thinks I'm ungrateful or a disgrace for taking my sister to court, let them think what they want. Because I know one thing for sure. For the first time in my life, I stood up for myself. And I don't regret it, not even a little. And before I end the story, I want to ask you, was I wrong for suing my sister to get back the $125,000 that was mine? Drop a comment below. I genuinely want to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel because your support keeps me going and motivates me to keep sharing accurate, honest, and emotional stories like this one. Thank you for listening.